And this is the property I call my first crack house. And it had tenants in the rear unit that were dealing meth, literally. And so I ended up getting the whole unit done, adding a bathroom, a new roof, everything, and we were in for $25,000. And I tracked every penny of that. Those are the properties that have some value add, and value add means forced appreciation, which, as you remember, is the important part about buying a BRRRR, forcing appreciation.
Forced appreciation through strategic renovations.
Yes. At the time, I was making $52,000, and by the end of my career, I made as high as $80,000.
Out of Kellan's first 4 properties, 2 of them were the problem property on the street,
yes,
right?
Yes, and we're counting pennies, right? And at some point you need to stop counting pennies and start counting dollars.
What is up, YouTube? This is part 2 of a 2-part series documenting exactly how Kellan, that's the co-host of the On Fire podcast that I do, exactly how he managed to reach financial independence in under 3 years with essentially all his own money by just doing real estate investing. It's really exciting to be sharing this part 2 of the 2-part series with you guys because, I mean, if Kellan can do it, I really hope that you can see that anyone can do it. Because back in 2016, when I first met him, he had no real estate experience. All he'd done was watch a few YouTube videos and then decide to jump into the game and take action. And taking action is the #1 thing that holds back real estate investors from becoming true real estate investors. I mean, I see this all the time. You guys just need to make more offers, and I hope that Kellan's story helps give you some of the confidence you need to go out there and crush it as a real estate investor.
When you were like, look, if you turn this over, I can't see how it wouldn't be worth $500,000. I remember you saying that. I was like, whoa, like I could own a property worth $500,000. Now, and like since the last video we did, this is the one with the exposed brick and all that stuff in the unit. I guessed it would be worth $600,000. I think it's comfortably worth probably $750,000 after I'm done all renovations on it. It's going to be grossing over $6,000 a month. So that would sell in a heartbeat on the MLS. I would think around $700 to $750,000. So it's nice to see, you know, the combination of forced appreciation as well as market appreciation. All of these were deals without any market appreciation, but I mean, market appreciation just made everything kind of.
Yeah, it's just the bonus.
Yeah.
All right, so after the student rental, then we moved into the next triplex?
Yes, so I'm trying to remember which triplex that was. I gotta look it up. That was Lorne.
All right, so after the student rental, then we moved on to another triplex?
Yes, so this property was another off-market deal, and I found this through a contractor. So it's actually right next door to one of my other triplexes, so I was super emotional about it, and I was like, I really want this property. I'm so happy I bought it. The property owners were actually in Toronto, but the property manager was also one of my contractors. And at some point along the way, I told him I'm willing to pay a finder's fee. And he worked on a daily basis with another landlord, another guy who's actively buying properties, but that guy had never incentivized him with a finder's fee. So he came to me, and that other landlord actually used to manage this property as well. And he was super upset when he found out that I bought it. So staying top of mind and offering incentives is super important. This would have never happened if I hadn't. So he came to me and he's like, look, the owners are considering selling, and I was like, oh man, like I really want this. And I had bought a triplex next door for $216,000, which was a fantastic deal. So often in a negotiation, you ended up wanting the seller to offer their price first, but in this case, I wanted to anchor them with a value that for a property that I had bought next door for a fantastic price. So I said, first off, if you can start the negotiation through this contract, like if I can do this negotiation through the contractor rather than directly with the seller, at least to begin with, it'll be a great way to build some rapport because they're comfortable with this property manager currently, they trust him, all of that. So I said to him, look, if you can start the conversation with them and say, he bought the property next door quite recently for $216,000. He thinks this is sort of similar. So if you guys are around that price range, then there's something that we can do here. And I told him, I think there was some sort of incentive I'd given them where I said, if you can even try and convince them to do some other sweet spot or lower the price even more, then I'll pay you an even higher finder's fee. So another $500. And so he's having that conversation anyway. He's like, well, why don't I try and get them down a little bit, right? So I was trying to negotiate cash back on closing on this property, and we ended up deciding after some negotiation, they were a little not sure about how that process worked, and they weren't super comfortable with it. So they said, why don't we knock another $5,000 off the purchase price, and then in this case, we can just do it as a normal purchase. So I ended up getting that for $210,000. So I got it for even less than the one next door. And this property had 3 separate gas meters, 3 separate hydro meters, a whole bunch more bedrooms and all that. So now I owned 2 triplexes side by side with a garage in between that I can now use for storage of rental materials and all that stuff. So that was an awesome deal. Really happy with that. And in Ontario, if you own 2 properties side by side, depending on how they are set up as part lots and things like that, the properties may merge. So you don't want them to both merge and now become one property in the eyes of the city and the Ontario Land Act. So you oftentimes need to purchase that other property with another name on title in order for the property ownerships to not be identical, and that way they no longer merge. So that's one way of approaching it. I definitely got in my head about that, and it took me a while to figure it out and try and get somebody else's name on title because I didn't want a joint venture on this. But in the future, I would honestly consider just buying it, let them merge, and deal with the severance process, because I've talked to enough people now, and in situations like this, it seems like the severance process wouldn't be too difficult. It might be $1,000 or $2,000, and they'll be like, "Oh, you bought these properties; they were side by side, they merged, but you haven't done anything. You haven't put fences up. You haven't done anything. It's like you're fine. We can sever these." So it might be something to consider depending on the property. But
I personally would always do a separate name
just to keep it safe.
If that goes sideways, you're contacting Kellan, not myself. Some of the easy solutions to that problem is you can have your spouse go on for 1%. You can have a business partner go on for 1%. You can have a corporation you own go on for 1%. You could just set up a new corporation to own one of the properties. You can own the other one personally. There's a lot of different options there, but again, this is something that you can easily solve by having a half-hour conversation with your lawyer.
Yeah. So don't let it stop you from buying the deal just because you're worried about it merging. There's plenty of ways around it.
Yeah. And then so we moved on to a 5-plex?
Yep, so this property, once again, finder's fee. It was actually a close friend of mine, and she was doing some tiling work for me at one of my properties, and I had a stove, an old crappy gas stove or electric stove, 24-inch, terrible, like no one would want this thing. But I was like, let's throw it on Kijiji for $50, see if someone wants to buy it. And this person ended up reaching out, and they're like, yeah, I'd like to buy it. And they came to take a look. I wasn't even there. She was there kind of just like, hey, come pick it up and hand me the $50 for it. And the guy comes and he's like, I would only take it if it were free. It's in bad shape. And she was like, and she calls, and I was like, whatever, he can take it for free, it's fine. And I was just gonna throw it out anyway. So during that conversation, he saw that she was handy, and he was like, oh, any chance you can come help out with some of the renovations or whatever it is on his property? And she was like, oh, what kind of property do you have? And he's like, oh, it's a 5-plex in Old East. And right away she thought, I know someone who'd want to buy that. I could make $1,000. So she was like, yeah, I'll come take a look. And she ended up going and helping him out with some things. And then she saw the property, she walked him through the units, and right away she was like, I may have someone that might be interested in buying this. Would you have any interest in that? And he was like, well, he was kind of older. He was kind of considering selling it. So she put us in touch. I ended up buying the property, and I ended up buying that for $291,000, which was awesome for 5-plex. And I remember so many of these deals, I went over it in my head like analysis paralysis, but looking back, even at the time, looking back right after I closed, I was like, that was a good deal. So analysis paralysis really used to get to me.
And so at the time of this 5-plex, are we still just using that initial $125,000 capital you saved up? Had you started using OPM?
I think at that point I was still actually churning through my own money. There may have been somewhere along the way at this 6-plex, I needed a lot of money down on that. So I borrowed maybe 20 grand from a friend and just paid simple interest on it. And then as soon as I closed, I was able to pay them back. So it wasn't a concern, but I think, most of the way I was just churning through my own money. It didn't get until the second last or last property where I was like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm like ready to quit my job soon, and I just want to get another couple properties with a lender financing, and I was a little bit less picky about what I was buying at the time. So I was like, I'm just going to borrow the money, close on the property, and then pay off that money when I can.
But Kellan, my barber or my aunt or my cousin told me you can only get 3 mortgages with an A lender.
Yeah, so like, I mean, every lender is gonna be different depending on your market. If you're in Canada, Scotiabank is an amazing lender they actually offer up to 10 mortgages. You just have to make sure that your debt service score, your DSC, is gonna be in check. So you can use something like the 50% rule. There's also like the 1.1 and 1.2 score on your DSC. So you can Google some of these things, but you basically want to make sure your properties are cash flowing. If they're cash flowing well and they're showing either a surplus or at least that they float themselves, the bank's going to be happy to see that you still have your job and that you're able to continue financing properties that way. If your properties instead show a deficit, then every property you buy, it's going to make it look like you make less and less money essentially at your day job, and at some point you're not going to be able to qualify for more. So I was able to keep buying with very little resistance from the bank as long as I had good down payment funds and some liquidity. They do want to see that you have some money in the bank, because somewhere along the line they're like, you got 6 properties or 7 properties, you're still working a full-time day job, you're probably going to quit soon, because like clearly this is your focus. So they want to see some liquidity so that if you do quit, they see that you have some money ready to fall back on.
Cashflow Tribe.
Hey YouTube, have you checked out Cashflow Tribe yet? It doesn't matter whether you're an experienced, seasoned investor or brand new to the game. I can probably predict if you're currently not having the level of success you want as a real estate investor, it's due to one thing. That one thing is you're not making enough offers. Plain and simple. You need to be making more offers as a real estate investor if you want to hit those big, audacious goals that you're setting for yourself. So here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe, that's the community that myself and Ben were making together. And so Ben's actually so busy trying to provide value to you guys that he had to take off there. But here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe is really a one-of-a-kind community focused on results. That's the difference between us and everyone else. We want to get you guys those results. I'm tired of seeing people commenting on my YouTube channel for 2-3 years now, but they're not making offers. What's holding you back? I'm going to guess that it's either a lack of confidence or a lack of competence. And we cover both of those things in Cashflow Tribe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you guys a 7-day free trial offer. You can join Cashflow Tribe completely free, get it tested out. If you like it, great, stay and pay. If you don't, well, I hope you at least find one great idea that you can take away and use to start making more offers, gain more deals, and finally start making the money related to real estate investing that's probably why you're watching my YouTube channel. So let's do this, guys. Let's make 2020 your year.
Cashflow Tribe.
Awesome. And then so late 2018, early 2019 went on a triplex spree.
Yeah, I did. I think at the time and even right now, triplexes are kind of a sweet spot in London. So I don't remember what each of these are, but yeah, so this one is actually the property we saw on South Street in Soho in London. This is the one that had all the brand new siding on the outside of it. I purchased it for $148,000 in late 2018. So these deals are still out there. And this was, again, a triplex with 3 separate meters, all on the main floor as a bungalow, just a long old bungalow. And all the units paid about $500 per unit. People didn't see the potential in it, again, somehow. And none of the units they weren't willing to provide vacant possession, so that was a challenge as well. And anyway, I closed on it. They were actually asking $160 or something like that, so I got it for $148. And I put in about $75,000, which was a fairly frugal renovation considering how much work was done. Inside and out, everything's basically brand new. And so $148,000, I put in $75,000, and it reappraised. It ended up coming back at $385,000.
Oh wow! So
yeah, in the video we did, it was plenty. I was hoping for it to be coming back at $350,000, $385,000. So that was fantastic. I got all my money out, plus I forget tens of thousands. Really similar to my second property, which was interesting because this is one of those deals where people are like, yeah, you could do that back then, but you can't do it now. And one of my last deals that I bought like a year ago, really similar performance. So. That property cash flows about $1,000 a month after the refinance as well. So a lot of these cash flow very well with budgeting for vacancy maintenance, capital expenses, all of that. So then I ended up buying another triplex, and that one's been a bit of a headache. So that one doesn't have legal status with the city as a triplex. The previous owner converted it to 3 units. So I've actually only rented one of those units, and it's been sitting there because my portfolio is able to float me by in the meantime. Even though it doesn't make any money, it kind of floats by on its own. And I'm kind of working with the city at this point to work with potential for rezoning or change of use or whatever it may be. But worst case scenario, there's options to do things like Airbnb or convert it to a duplex or a single family. Either way, I bought it for $185,000, so there's plenty of potential for that. And that scared a lot of people away once again. So problems are profits. So that was my second last, and then I ended up buying my very last on March of 2019, which is almost a year ago. And I bought that in Old East Village as well. That was a prime example of just pure market appreciation and buying under market value. So I bought it for $291,000 or $280,000, and I think at the time it was probably worth around $330 to $350, so it was good, good wedge. I got some good under market value, but it just reappraised at $425. So and I didn't touch it. I literally, the same tenants are in it, and I haven't done anything to it. So that's just blows my mind. That's the easiest money I've ever made, and it's not something that I had full control over because of the market appreciation, but the buying under market, it just makes you think, right? If you can make 60 or 70 grand just on the buy, like, why would you focus any of your time on saving money at the grocery store or saving a few bucks on some renovation materials or whatever it may be? It's like, just keep moving, just keep renovating, keep buying, and focus on the big dollars. Yeah.
Love it. And then so between March 2019 and today in 2020,
I've just been sitting on my ass. So no, so I didn't buy anything since then, and I ended up going on a van trip with Angie. We did
left your job.
Left my left my day job. So that was a huge thing. I wasn't ready to. I was for the longest time, like, I hit financial independence quite early, but I wanted to keep building more passive income because why not? And because I was able to qualify for mortgages. So I think don't quit earlier than you need to. Keep that day job as much as you may not, as you might hate it. 1 or 2 years, and you can really build some solid foundation for yourself. I think it's worth squeezing it for everything you can. So anyway, I left my day job. My plan was to quit, and I ended up getting laid off. So I got laid off, which was great because I got some severance, and I got to, and I didn't have to make the decision for myself, for better or for worse. But it was nice because it was a celebration. How often do you get celebrating getting laid off, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a wonderful thing. People were finally able to stop bugging me about quitting my job, and I was able to start focusing on my real estate. But shortly after we left on that van trip, Angie and I did 3 months around the USA. We did 30,000 kilometers, lived in a van with Angie and her dog, and we saw like 30-something states. It was an incredible experience, and I got to focus on my life again for a little while, take a breath, reevaluate everything, and kind of decide on what my next goals are. And then all the while, even during that van trip, I don't want to downplay it, I was crazy busy, so I wasn't just sitting around and enjoying my life. I had 4 renovations on the go at any time, a lot of deferred maintenance. So all these properties, I wasn't able to get all the units vacant, right? Like realistically, it was 32 units that I bought in 2.5 years, and I wasn't able to get them all empty. And so eventually some of them just started turning over. Maybe some of the cash for keys offers finally were getting accepted, and people were finally moving out. So all these units I was renovating constantly, keeping contractors busy as much as I possibly could. A lot of the rents were doubling. Some of them have tripled. So my cash flow just kept skyrocketing, which is a wonderful thing. And I did a little bit of wholesaling and stuff like that in the meantime because I wasn't really in a place where I wanted to buy. And just working on my deferred maintenance, getting the rents up, and building up my passive income.
For anyone at home right now that's watching this, they might jump to what I consider the wrong conclusion, that seeing how since March 2019 you haven't bought, that it's no longer possible, that everything Kellan did is impossible. Do you mind just shedding some light on that? Like, are there still other people in our network still doing deals? Yeah,
I mean, it's constant. It's the same game as it always was. I would say realistically, yes, it's a little bit harder. Probably 25-30% harder than it was in 2017. You know, it was still a challenge at that time. It's not like, you know, we're talking about these properties you buy for 110,000 or 177,000 or whatever, 127,000. It's like, you know, at the time I was expecting rents of, you know, $800 when I was done, and now those are $1,400. So like the numbers were just the ratios were the same. Everything has just gotten up. And realistically, I think there's value in the fact that all these properties are worth more now, so you can leverage way more than we were able to. You don't have a whole lot of leverage on a property that's $110,000. That's a lot. There's a lot of value in holding that mortgage. So if you can hold a mortgage out of a property that's around the 1% rule, and you bought it for $300,000 or $400,000 versus a property that's $150,000, you're going to be cash flowing similarly, if not more. You're going to have way more mortgage pay down, way more leverage, way more potential for appreciation. You're going to have a larger portfolio that's appreciating at whatever it may be, if you're even looking at appreciation at all. So I think there's actually a lot of value in these in the fact that the market is up, and there's and the fact that the market has done this in the time it has. There's a lot of opportunity out there in terms of landlords who have no idea what rents are at right now. Tons of properties that are just, I mean, at this point we're looking at properties where the rents are $700 and they should be $1,400 all the time. So there's a huge opportunity now that we didn't have at that time, because the rents were not, the difference in rent was, we couldn't push it like we could now. So it's just a different game. And I think that when you're faced with a market where, you know, you're looking at Canada versus the US, oh, they have the 1031 exchange, you can look up the property's phone number on the internet, like all these things that you can't do here, targeted marketing for wholesaling, all these things like, don't you wish we could do that here? Well, it's great that we can't, because it makes all of it that much harder for everybody. It's just a whole different game, and I'd rather the game be harder than easier, because we have the opportunity to put in our sweat equity and make money that way.
Yeah, and one other just like point of perspective that I really want to hit home is, like, when Kellan's saying like it's harder now than it was back then, the only thing that I would challenge like the viewers at home and Kellan on with that perspective is there was less content out there in 2017. Like legitimately now, there's a crazy guy on YouTube that's produced over 500 videos focused on Southwestern Ontario's real estate market, and like that barely existed in 2017. And in 2016, when Kellan bought in August, literally the next month is when I started my YouTube channel. Information has never been easier to get a hold of. You know, education is literally free these days. There's so many opportunities out there. So I think we need to look at, even though prices have maybe appreciated, maybe that we get into multiple offers more often in this market, at the same time, your opportunity to learn more and just be more knowledgeable from day one as an investor, it's never been like this before. And I think that that's really powerful, and a lot of us discount that just because it's almost too easy, in my opinion, now to get access to this content.
And not only that, the availability of money has just skyrocketed. Everyone has money now. Like, you know, money people deal. Money is everywhere. We know that now, and I think even beginner investors understand that. Whereas when we were first starting out, we heard money is available, but we didn't realize to the extent that it is, and it's even more available now, because you can just you can go to any meetup group and there's 50 people there that have got a bunch of money, and half of them want a joint venture on anything. So people are hungry now. At the time, it was a pitch to try and find a joint venture partnership. Now it's, please, can I joint venture with you? So like, it's just a different game, but I wouldn't say necessarily in a lot of ways that it's harder for sure. I would say, So it might be a little bit harder to find properties that cash flow. Like, I would say that's where a bit of the challenge may be. But again, most of the ratios are pretty similar.
All right, well, that's it for Kellan's backstory. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you'd like to see us do this more often with other real estate investors, what I need from you is for you to jump in that comment section and let us know what other characters, what other guests have been on my channel that you would love to see them go through line by line by line every one of their properties that they've acquired. I mean, not everyone's going to be willing to do it, but let me know who you'd like to see on my channel, and we'll try and make it happen. Otherwise, if you guys want to watch more Kellan, check out this playlist right here, or if you just want more great real estate content, check out this playlist down here. Until next time, remember, making money is a team sport. There's more than enough money in this world for us to all make it, but if you're not saving it, I mean, like, what's the point, guys?